Hey everybody, welcome back to Terrariums and Aquariums. My name is Erica,
My name is Tim.
and today we're going to be talking about something that's been trending in the reptile community, and that is Samson Pruitt and Slithers. Now, first and foremost, we want to be clear, we are not a drama channel by any means. We are not trying to give our opinion on the situation, but more importantly, as we were looking at the evidence in the Facebook groups that were showing what was going on, I saw a lot of people in the comments saying they didn't understand what was wrong or what are they looking at. And today, all we really want to do is help educate people that are trying to join the reptile community or people that are already in the community that want to become breeders on how to safely and responsibly breed and or keep reptiles. So while there is a lot that goes into reptile keeping and there could be different ways for everybody to take care of their pets, we're going to give our 7 basic principles of keeping a reptile.
All right, so number one, we'll start with, is the pet legal? In your state, your country, you definitely want to check that out, because the last thing that you really want to do is get a pet that's illegal that could result in jail time or fines.
It also depends on county. Even though your state could say that the particular reptile, fish, exotic animal, whatever it may be, is allowed in the state, it does vary by county.
If you're in the United States, you definitely want to look at your state laws, your county laws, and your city laws, because sometimes there can just be laws that are thrown in at a county level, a city level, or a state level. And here in Texas, where we are, there is a lot of county laws that subsede the state law when it comes to animal keeping and may require permits and things like that. So it's just something that you want to brush up on, because the last thing you want to do is keep a pet, somebody gets word of that, and then next thing you know, the pet gets taken away, you have a fine or jail time.
All right, point number 2, and this may be one of the most crucial parts of getting into breeding or the reptile hobby, is make sure you do your research. And I'm not talking about just general research, how do I keep a snake? Each species has different requirements. Each species needs proper heat, needs proper lighting, needs to be fed this diet, needs this much room. And that's kind of one of the things that was a big controversial topic about everything going on with Slither right now. Is majority of the pets that were shown in these pictures were reticulated pythons, and they were kept in very, very small spaces.
There were some mentions of cats as well, and some other animals, but primarily it had to do with snakes and reptiles.
So before you just jump straight into breeding, make sure that you look up what your particular reptile needs. I mean, we're waiting on one ourselves, and we already got the tank set up. Make sure it's meeting the proper requirements. Make sure everything's good to go so that they have the happiest life possible.
Yeah, and a general rule of thumb, I mean, if you're keeping snakes in particular, you want one side of the enclosure to be as long as the snake. So it needs to be able to fully stretch out. Remember, this isn't like a one YouTube video show. You know, don't just watch one video on YouTube and say, okay, this person, don't put all your eggs in that basket that person
I know everything about this now.
Yeah, and so you want to, like, multiple videos, multiple places. I mean, do as much research as you can. It never hurts to have as much knowledge going into owning a pet. That way you just do the proper thing. With reptiles in particular, and some aquatic animals, there's a lot of things like humidity, water temperatures, room, how many particular animals can be in one enclosure together, whether it's male or female that can be in an enclosure together. I mean, those are all things that you need to know and understand before getting any reptile or aquatic animal, or really, to be honest with you, any pet in general. All right, and so I just want to get into number 3, making sure that you have the time for your pet. If you know that you're a person that's traveling all the time and things like that, I mean, it's understandable if you have somebody else that can help take care of the animal, whether that's a friend, family member, whether it's just you paying somebody. Make sure that you make sure they're knowledgeable, about whatever pet that you're keeping. If you're going to be gone all the time, make sure that you're looking into getting a pet that maybe eats once a week or is low maintenance, doesn't need to make sure that it's misted every other day or every day. There are reptiles out there that are really simple and really basic. You may not get every reptile that you want to have, but understand what your time constraints are and what that means for the reptile's safety and happiness.
And that's not to say get a reptile that you can just feed once a week and forget about for 6 days. We should still be keeping up with them, checking on them daily, making sure they don't look sick, making sure that they don't have anything weird going on. They are really easy and simple to keep for the most part. I mean, some are pretty meticulous, but that doesn't mean that you can just feed and forget about them.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no excuse to not take care of your animal.
No.
Sick, mental health, I get those things, and please help yourself if you find yourself in any one of those positions. But please also remember that you have an animal to take care of. Make sure that you make time to keep the animal healthy and safe.
All right, number 4 is make sure you have the room. This kind of goes hand in hand with their requirements, making sure they have enough space in their enclosure, but make sure you have the room. Don't go trying to breed 10, 20 ball pythons when you're living in an 800 square foot apartment. It's stressful, it's going to take up a lot of space. I mean, we're only going to keep as much as we can handle in this house at the moment. We know our limits, but we don't need hundreds or thousands of snakes, reptiles crammed up in one room, or maybe even forced outside where they don't have adequate temperature or humidity or things like that.
Yeah, and obviously if you have the space to dedicate to each animal's enclosure and making sure each animal that you have has the proper space and that's all you want to fill your house with, be my guest, but just make sure that you are actually giving them the proper space and the proper, humidity. All those things are important. Just understand what your limit is and what lengths you're willing to go to make sure that animal is safe and healthy.
Number 5, make sure you have the funds. Reptiles, again, are easy to take care of for the most part. Majority of them are anyway. That doesn't mean that they are inexpensive by any means. You have to focus on the enclosure itself, which if you get a really nice one could cost anywhere from $200, $300, $400, $500 depending on how big it is. Substrate, making sure you have the proper bedding, making sure that you have hides. If you're doing multiple reptiles, you're going to have to buy multiple of these things. Biggest thing, electricity. It takes a lot of electricity, especially if you have multiple setups. That's a lot of lights, that's a lot of heat lamps. Food, you have to buy them food. You have to keep up with your rats, your mice, your crickets, things like that. Now, I do want to say that it can be easy to set up a tank or get something ready for a reptile on a budget, which is why we made our previous video, how to set up a snake tank with $92. But that doesn't mean that you can skimp out on making sure they have the appropriate enclosure. Using plastic tubs is just fine as long as you get the right size, as long as you make sure everything else is taken care of.
7.
6.
Number 7.
6.
Number 6. This one is a big one to me. Don't get too many animals. If you cannot handle a bunch of animals, and I think that this mostly applies to breeders. If you're wanting to breed your animals, understand what your capacity is, whether you are at your home, whether you have a warehouse. If you have endless money, then you need to be hiring people to take care of them. Make sure that you have the resources to take care of them and make sure that they're healthy. That is one of the biggest things that happened, and that's why this whole scenario happened, is because it was a lack of people taking care of animals or growing too big. I understand people want to be a breeder. It's profitable. It's a great place to make some money, and I get that. but you have to make sure that you don't get too big for yourself. You have to understand when you are getting too big, and either you need help, you need to make sure you have the funds to hire that help, or you need to scale down your operation. You need to do one of the two things. Neglect and animals getting sick and not catching that they're getting sick really happens when you have too many animals, because you are not, your time doing all of those things, you're feeling burnt out. You're not able to go do that family event, you're not able to go hang out with friends, you're not able to do those things. And that really, if you want to commit all your time to do that, and you can take care of them and you can have more animals that way, I mean, by all means, do what you can do. But really, I think we as pet owners, not just in reptiles, but we need to understand how many pets we can actually care for and care for properly.
As Tim said, we can totally understand wanting to get into reptile breeding. It is pretty fun, and yeah, it can be profitable if done correctly, but some of the responses that we saw from the organization was that they had thousands of animals. Some of them die and some of them get sick, and that's true. I mean, if you're going to be a reptile breeder, you have to come to terms with the fact that some of your animals are not going to make it. They may be born with a kink or an issue, they're going to get sick, but that doesn't excuse leaving them in those conditions. And if you do, then obviously you just don't have enough time to take care of the thousands of reptiles that you have. Even though it's reported, I mean, we know that there were employees because they've come out to speak. But again, we're not going to express our opinions. We're just stating how we feel proper care could have helped with the information given to us.
Yeah, and once again, as Erica said in the beginning, this is more of a lot of people we saw in the Facebook groups and some YouTube comments, things like that. People weren't quite understanding why these things were bad. And so we wanted to draw more attention to that and actually taking care of the pets. We're, at the end of the day, we're not here to bash everyone. We don't know those people personally, and I don't know. They could be really good people, and sometimes bad things happen, but in this particular case, I just feel like it got drawn out too far, and there was nothing done about it. One of the biggest things that I didn't even think about until now, being coachable is a huge thing. Don't have that mentality of I know everything and what I know is best.
What I did wasn't wrong. I have an excuse for all of this stuff.
Right, and even if we make a mistake, we will make that mistake, and if somebody lets us know that it happens, we will fix it. If we're doing something wrong and we don't quite know, it's understandable to make a mistake and learn from that mistake, and then make sure that your pet doesn't go through it again.
But all of that really comes down to the last point, the seventh point that we want to make for this video, and that is just love your pets. Regardless if you're trying to breed your reptiles or if you're just keeping them as a pet, they still require the same things. Just because you're a breeder and you have racks and racks and racks of snakes doesn't change the fact that they still need proper water, they still need bedding, they still need attention. Especially if you're trying to breed some sort of docile, or I don't know how you would say it, breed snakes that are more docile, they're domesticated, they're gonna be high quality for your customers. At the end of the day, I mean, they are animals. They do feel pain, they do have feelings. They might not have as many emotions or complex emotions as us, but they do feel pain. And if you don't give your animals, or you come into this hobby or this occupation or this community without love and respect for these animals, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, and so that's really the hugest thing. Love your animals, learn for your animals. If you're not the most knowledgeable, a lot of us started not being knowledgeable about reptiles and pets, aquatics and fish, all of those things. And so it's not to say that you can't be there, Just make sure that you do the research, you learn from when you do make mistakes, or maybe when someone else is pointing out a mistake, maybe research about what they're saying to come to a conclusion on how to do it better. Or maybe they're making the mistake and they don't know it. Maybe you can do some research and you can say, well, this is actually correct, and I did this by doing this research, and I found out that this is the correct way, and neither one of us are doing it correct, or maybe they weren't doing it correct. So that, it's not a pointing fingers thing. It's a, let's just all learn to be better about taking care of our pets. Love them as if they're your family member. As Eric said, they want your love. They're not in the wild, especially if you're breeding. They're not in the wild. They never were in the wild. And so they need that extra help. They kind of rely on you.
The more you have a passion for this community and a passion for the reptiles that you are owning and breeding and trying to bring into the world, the more you're going to seek out more friends that are in the hobby, or collaborate with others that are in the hobby, or go to expos, or just anywhere where you can get more information and knowledge. And in turn, that passion is going to turn into high quality animals. Love doesn't just mean pick them up and give them a hug,
Right.
Especially for reptiles. A lot of them, that is the opposite of love.
Yeah.
But just care about them.
All right. Guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. If you want us to make a video for proper care for reticulated pythons, let us know. Comment down below, like, subscribe, share, and we will make that video for you. All right, I do want to thank y'all for tuning in again. Peace out, guys.
Bye.